The United States spends $886 billion a year on its military. Iran spends $7 billion. That is a 126-to-1 ratio. On paper, this war should have lasted 48 hours. It has been 3 weeks, and Iran is still fighting. This is not a story about which country is stronger. It is a story about two militaries that spent 45 years evolving in opposite directions. One building the most expensive, most advanced war machine in human history, the other engineering a single specific answer to that machine. On February 28, 2026, both strategies were finally tested in combat. The results are not what either side expected. To understand what is happening right now over the skies of Tehran, in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz, and across 12 countries burning through the Middle East, you have to go back to a single year that split two militaries apart forever, 1979. Before the Iranian Revolution, the Imperial Iranian Air Force flew American aircraft. Not copies, not exports, the actual aircraft. F-14 Tomcats, the most advanced naval fighter on the planet at the time, were delivered to Iran in 1976. Iranian pilots trained at American bases. American technicians maintained Iranian jets. The two militaries were not just allies. In terms of hardware, they were nearly identical. The same radar, the same avionics, the same AWG-9 weapons control system, capable of tracking 24 targets simultaneously and engaging 6 at once. 2 air forces, 1 aircraft, 1 shared doctrine. Then the Shah fell. Within months, every American military contract was canceled. Every spare part, every technical manual, every upgrade pipeline, cut. Iran was left with a fleet of F-14 Tomcats and almost no way to keep them flying. The US, meanwhile, continued evolving its military with unlimited funding and zero external constraints. Two forces that once shared the same aircraft began a 45-year divergence that would produce two of the most different military philosophies ever to collide in modern warfare. And buried inside that divergence was a problem neither side fully understood. A problem that $886 billion a year still has not solved, and that a $20,000 drone is now exposing in real time. But while America was perfecting the scalpel, Iran was mass-producing the sledgehammer. And between those two approaches, there was a shadow war running in parallel that most people never saw. A war fought with code, with polonium, and with tunnel-boring machines grinding through granite at 20 meters per month. That war is what made February 28, 2026 inevitable. For most of the Cold War, military power was measured in the same currency: platforms, tanks, aircraft, ships. The country that could build more of them and make each one more capable dominated the battlefield. The United States became the undisputed master of this model. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, no nation on Earth could compete in a straight contest of conventional military power. Then came the Gulf War, and the transformation accelerated. In January 1991, the US launched Operation Desert Storm against Iraq, one of the largest conventional armies in the world, equipped with Soviet weapons dug into fixed positions. The war lasted 43 days. Iraq's air defense was dismantled in hours. For the first time in history, precision-guided munitions allowed aircraft to hit specific buildings, specific rooms, specific floors. The F-117 Nighthawk, the world's first operational stealth aircraft, flew missions that radar simply could not detect. Coalition forces suffered fewer than 300 combat deaths against an army of 900,000. The message to the world was unambiguous. If you fight America conventionally, you lose. Every strategist in Tehran watched Desert Storm and drew the same conclusion. The lesson was written in the rubble of Baghdad. Precision weapons, stealth aircraft, overwhelming air superiority, instruments built for one specific kind of war, a declared war. A war with front lines, uniforms, and tank columns moving across open desert. Iran's strategists understood this completely. They had no interest in that kind of war. They were designing a different one without front lines, waged across 6 countries simultaneously, from tunnels and rooftops and fishing boats, by forces that denied any connection to Tehran, even as Tehran directed every move. Exodus traces the complete evolution of the world's most powerful technology, every week. Subscribe now. The next chapter of this story is the one nobody sees coming. Through the 1990s and 2000s, the US military kept building. The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber entered service, $2.1 billion per aircraft. capable of carrying 40,000 pounds of ordnance and flying from Missouri to any target on Earth without being detected. No forward base required, no overflight permission needed, just a refueling tanker over the Atlantic and a clear weapons bay. The F-22 Raptor came next. Super cruise capability, meaning it could exceed the speed of sound without afterburners. Radar cross-section the size of a marble. Air superiority so complete that in simulated engagements, a single F-22 recorded kill ratios of 108-1 against fourth-generation fighters. Then the F-35 Lightning II, not just a fighter, a flying sensor network. Its AN/APG-81 active electronically scanned radar can track hundreds of targets simultaneously. Its distributed aperture system gives the pilot a 360-degree view around the aircraft in real time. It can share targeting data with every other asset in the battle space, ships, other aircraft, ground forces, simultaneously. 3 variants. Over 900 aircraft delivered by 2026. The most widely deployed 5th-generation combat aircraft in history. 11 aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world combined. Each one a floating airbase carrying 75 aircraft, escorted by cruisers, destroyers, submarines, and logistics ships. A carrier strike group capable of projecting overwhelming air power anywhere on Earth within days. The USS Gerald R. Ford cost $13.3 billion. The missile defense architecture completed the picture. Patriot PAC-3 batteries. THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, capable of intercepting ballistic missiles both inside and outside the atmosphere. Aegis destroyers with Standard Missile 3 interceptors, a layered shield designed to destroy anything incoming before it reaches American forces or allies. By 2025, the U.S. military budget had reached $886 billion annually, more than the next 10 countries combined, built explicitly to fight and win wars against states. Iran had $7 billion and 45 years to think about what to do with it. The Iranian military after 1979 faced a paradox. The Iran-Iraq War from 1980 to 1988, 8 years of grinding conventional warfare that killed over 1 million people, taught Iranian strategists a lesson they never forgot. An estimated 600,000 Iranian soldiers died. Cities were bombed into rubble. Chemical weapons were used against Iranian troops on the front lines and against civilians in Kurdish villages. The war ended in a stalemate that resolved nothing. What it produced was a generation of military planners who had witnessed conventional warfare at its most catastrophic and concluded, with certainty, that Iran would never fight that way again. They couldn't outspend the United States. They couldn't outbuild it. They couldn't match it carrier for carrier, fighter for fighter, missile for missile. So they stopped trying. The strategy that emerged from the Revolutionary Guard's planning rooms was built on 3 foundations. First, missiles. Iran built the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East, over 3,000 missiles across dozens of variants. The Shahed series. The Sejil, a 2-stage solid fuel missile with a 2,000-kilometer range, launchable within minutes of an order with no fueling required. The Fatah-1 hypersonic glide vehicle, claimed to maneuver at Mach 13 and defeat existing missile defense systems. Not all claims independently verified, but 3,000 missiles, even slower, less precise ones, represent a saturation problem that no missile defense architecture was fully designed to handle. They do not all need to hit. They need to keep coming. Second, drones. The Shahed 136, approximately $20,000, range of over 2,500 kilometers, a 50-kilogram warhead. It flies low and slow, which makes it harder, not easier, for some radar systems to track. Its small radar cross-section produces returns that can be confused with birds or ground clutter. It emits no electronic signals that betray its position. It can be produced by the thousands in dispersed factories nearly impossible to eliminate in any single strike campaign. The math became unavoidable. A THAAD interceptor cost $12.7 million. A PAC-3 Patriot cost $3.7 million. Every time a $12.7 million missile destroys a $20,000 drone, the defender loses the economic exchange by a factor of 635 to 1. Fire enough drones, and even the most sophisticated missile defense system in the world runs out of interceptors before the attacker runs out of drones. This was not an accident in the design. It was the design. Third, the proxy network. Hezbollah in Lebanon. 150,000 rockets and missiles pointed at Israel, accumulated over 2 decades of Iranian funding. Houthi forces in Yemen, sitting astride the Red Sea, through which 12% of global trade flows annually. Shia militias across Iraq and Syria, operating within striking distance of every major U.S. base in the region. Iran had effectively surrounded the American military position in the Middle East, not with its own uniformed soldiers, but with allied forces deniable enough to create legal and political ambiguity about every strike they launched. Each proxy extended the front. Each one forced the U.S. to respond across a wider area, diluting the concentration of American firepower. And then, there was the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, the single passage through which 20% of the world's oil supply flows every day. Iran's primary mining tool is the EM-52, a rocket-propelled influence mine that sits on the seafloor and rises to intercept ships when acoustic, magnetic, or pressure signatures match a pre-programmed target profile. It cannot be swept by conventional minesweepers. Iran holds stockpiles of over 2,000 naval mines of various types. At the navigable channel, the strait narrows to less than 6 miles. Iran does not need to sink every ship. It needs to make insurers unwilling to send ships through at all. Lloyd's of London suspended strait coverage on day 3 of Operation Epic Fury. The strait effectively closed before a single mine was deployed. This is what 45 years of asymmetric planning produces. Not a military that can defeat America. A military that can make fighting America so expensive that the cost of winning becomes the argument against fighting at all. The cost calculation was not theoretical. It was rehearsed. Between 2019 and 2025, Iranian proxies fired thousands of drones and missiles at Saudi Arabia, Israel, and U.S. bases in Iraq. Each engagement was a live exercise. Each interceptor expended was a carefully logged data point. Iran was not just building weapons, it was stress-testing American missile defense in real combat. But the missiles and the drones and the proxies were only part of the strategy. Between 2010 and 2025, a different kind of war was running in parallel, one that neither side has fully acknowledged. In 2010, Iranian engineers at Natanz began noticing something wrong. Centrifuges were failing, destroying themselves. Over 1,000 were damaged before anyone understood what was happening. The weapon was code. Stuxnet, the first cyber weapon in history designed to cause physical destruction, targeted Siemens industrial controllers running Iran's centrifuges and made the machines tear themselves apart while reporting normal operation to their operators. It set Iran's nuclear program back by an estimated 2 years, and it delivered a message that permanently reshaped Iranian strategic thinking. The Americans were already inside the network. Every system connected to a computer was potentially compromised. Then came the assassinations. Mostafa Ahmadi Roshan, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, killed in 2020 by a remote-controlled machine gun equipped with facial recognition technology, fired via satellite link from hundreds of kilometers away. Each killing delivered the same message. Your expertise is not safe above ground. The response was depth. The Revolutionary Guard Corps Engineering Command began boring at a pace that Western intelligence consistently underestimated. By 2026, that tunnel network extended an estimated 500 kilometers across 17 provinces. Missile launchers on rail systems behind blast doors, command centers with independent power generation, drone production lines 80 meters below surface. The GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the largest conventional bomb in the U.S. arsenal, penetrates approximately 60 meters of reinforced concrete. Some Iranian tunnel sections were engineered to 80 meters of solid granite. That 10-meter gap was not accidental. It was the product of a decade of studying American weapons specifications and engineering precisely around them. When US B-2 struck Fordow on night 1 of Operation Epic Fury, the surface structures were destroyed. The production lines 80 meters below kept running. Drop a comment. At what point does tunnel depth become irrelevant when the US develops sensors that can see through rock? February 28, 2026. Operation Epic Fury begins. Within the first 24 hours, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers struck hardened underground facilities at Fordow and Natanz. F-22 Raptors and F-35s swept Iranian airspace. Tomahawk cruise missiles from USS Arleigh Burke-class destroyers targeted radar installations and command nodes. EA-18G Growlers from the USS Abraham Lincoln jammed Iranian communications and radar frequencies across a 400-kilometer radius. It was the most coordinated opening strike in American military history since Desert Storm. And Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was killed on day 1. Over 8,000 targets struck in 24 days. Iranian air defense suppressed across most of the country. The F-35I scored the aircraft's first-ever air-to-air kill, downing a Yak-130 trainer over Tehran. The U.S. debuted Lucas in combat, a $35,000 American copy of Iran's own Shahed 136, deployed by the thousands against Iranian infrastructure. America had studied Iran's weapon, reverse-engineered it, mass-produced it, and was now using it against the country that invented it. The irony was not subtle, it was policy. But Iran had not spent 45 years planning for a 72-hour war. Within the first week, Iran launched over 500 ballistic missiles in rolling waves designed to exhaust interceptor stockpiles. The Houthis struck from Yemen. Hezbollah fired from Lebanon. Iraqi militias targeted U.S. logistics hubs at Erbil and Al-Tanf. On day 4, the Strait of Hormuz was closed. Within 48 hours, oil prices had risen 34%. The intercept rate was high. Over 80% of incoming ballistic missiles destroyed. But each intercept consumed one $12.7 million THAAD round or one $3.7 million Patriot. Iran fired 2,000 or more drones and 500 or more missiles in 24 days. In the 12-day conflict of June 2025, the U.S. and its allies had already burned through an estimated 25% of global THAAD interceptor inventory. The factories that build THAAD interceptors produce roughly 200 per year. The war was consuming them at a rate no production line was designed to sustain. If you've made it this far, you already understand something most people watching this war on television do not. The real battlefield is not over Tehran. It is a running calculation of interceptors remaining versus missiles still in Iranian tunnels. Subscribe to Exodus. This is where that calculation becomes visible. Within 2 weeks, Iranian-affiliated forces had struck Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the UAE, and Jordan. Saudi oil infrastructure at Abqaiq was hit for the second time in 7 years. Every Gulf state was inside the war. 18 days in, at least 1,500 dead in Iran, 13 U.S. service members killed, 18 in Israel. The strait closure was already the most significant energy shock since 1973. Neither side was winning cleanly. Both sides had proven something. Save this video. The weapons programs being funded right now in response to this war will define every conflict for the next 50 years. The United States proved its stealth platforms, precision munitions, and electronic warfare capabilities are genuinely world-class. In a head-to-head conventional exchange, it remains in a category of its own. But Iran proved that asymmetric strategy, missiles, drones, proxies, geography, tunnels, could impose costs that $886 billion alone cannot absorb. None of it stopped the U.S. from striking. All of it made the war longer, more expensive, and less conclusive than the 48-hour scenario American planners had projected. This is what 45 years of opposite evolution produces. Not victory for either side. A grinding demonstration that modern warfare has a cost exchange problem that no one has solved. The Pentagon's answer has a name: the Golden Dome, a layered air defense architecture built around directed energy weapons. High-powered lasers capable of destroying drones for approximately $3 per shot. Not $12.7 million, $3. If it works at scale, it eliminates the economic logic of Iran's drone strategy entirely. The 635-to-1 advantage of the Shahed collapses to zero when the interceptor costs less than a cup of coffee. Lucas production is scaling to tens of thousands. AI targeting is being integrated for fully autonomous strikes, a legal and ethical threshold the U.S. military crossed for the first time in this conflict. The B-21 Raider will replace the B-2, designed from the ground up for a world where adversaries have near-peer electronic warfare and tunnel networks that conventional bombs cannot reliably reach. None of these programs exist in a vacuum. They exist because the war happening right now is exposing every gap in American military readiness, and the Pentagon is taking notes in real time. 3 weeks in, the United States is weighing what comes next. Iran is still fighting. That is not a verdict on who wins. It is a demonstration of what 45 years of divergent evolution produces when it finally converges. The same wings that once symbolized a partnership now shadow a graveyard of diplomacy. The F-14 Tomcat Iran, inherited in 1976, is a museum piece. Every weapon fighting over Iranian airspace today traces its lineage back to the moment two allies became adversaries and started building for this exact confrontation. The most advanced military in human history, against the most sophisticated asymmetric strategy ever engineered to specifically fight it. Two doctrines built in opposite directions for 45 years. One collision that neither side fully predicted. The outcome is still being written. Next week on Exodus, The complete evolution of the aircraft carrier, from a converted coal ship in 1922 to the $13.3 billion nuclear fortress currently positioned at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz. Subscribe to Exodus. The transformation is just getting started. This is Exodus, how everything transforms.